Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Uh, Muhammad Fasih, if you could open with a dua for us, inshallah.
إن شاء الله آمين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وأصحابه وبارك وسلم. لا إله إلا الله الحليم الكريم. سبحان رب السماوات السبع ورب العرش العظيم. بفضلك الدعوة فيها سبحانك اللهم وتحيتهم فيها سلام وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa akhlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad wa ashabi wa barik wa sallim. We're going to a new door tonight, inshallah. As a short reminder to all of us that we are dealing with methods of how to purify our hearts and to look at practical ways of how to achieve this. And tonight, inshallah, we will go to the door of, we put up the slide. Forgiveness and tolerance. If I sound a bit sniffy, please forgive me because I think it's extremely cold and I might be getting a cold. So please forgive me for that. Now, forgiveness and tolerance sounds very simple to understand. We must be tolerant towards people and we must forgive people at our level. But this is one of the ways, if we understand these qualities, then it's a very easy, it can be very easy to implement it, to find ways of putting our hearts in better states. Now, forgiveness, generally speaking, is when one pardons those who have injured, harmed, or offended us in one way or the other. Now, the word forgiveness comes from the Greek word. It was derived from that. It means to let go. To let go of something that you actually have. Now, when somebody has harmed you, then well, firstly, if they've harmed you and injured you, you have something now. They've given you something. They've given you something to be able to get compensation from them for what they've done to you. Now, forgiveness is when you let go of that, when you pardon people, instead of doing the natural thing, depending on the circumstances, and it can vary from one situation to another. Generally speaking, human beings, they don't like to be harmed or injured or offended or insulted or embarrassed in any way. And the natural response, human response, is to hit back and to retaliate, to at the very least do what they have done to you, you do it to them. Now, from a Sharia perspective, the legal perspective, the law of Islam, it's not wrong to retaliate or to seek compensation for what somebody else has done to you that was harmful. but the Sharia prescribes very specific limits within which you are allowed to do it. Firstly, it must be fair and just, and it must almost be equivalent to, it can be less than, but it can't be more than, you seeking to get more than what is due to you. Now, the guidance on this is quite clear, because in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us as human beings, this is the way you as Muslims should behave when something is done to you that offended you or harmed you. And Allah says in the Quran, chapter 16, verse 126, open quote, and if you take your turn, then retaliate with the like of that with which you were afflicted. But if you are patient, it will certainly be best for those who are patient. So Allah makes it clear it's not wrong for us to want to seek compensation or to retaliate when people injure or hurt us or harm us. It's acceptable. Allah says so. The owner of the universe, who created you and me and our conditions and all our circumstances that we find ourselves in this dunya, Allah says it's acceptable for you to react in that way. But Allah says, but if you are patient, it will certainly be best for those who are patient. Now, patient here can be interpreted as, yes, it's due to you, but you don't take it. In other words, it's one of the ways of saying, but if you forgive. So the underlying message that we are given by our Rabb, our owner, our creator, we should refrain from, if it's possible, to rather show mercy and kindness and forgiveness, and that we should not bear grudges and seek revenge. We should rather try and reconcile using peaceful means, because we are part of a human family, a human species, where we will be living together, and it's inevitable that people will harm us, and it's inevitable that we will be harming and injuring and embarrassing and placing people in positions of discomfort. We will be doing it as well. This is the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us. We have that kind of human nature. We are not only good, we also do things that's bad, that's disliked. And Allah says that when we are harmed, it's better for us to show mercy and kindness. Now, I could have put up here, not bearing grudges. I could have put up here on the slide, unforgiving, which is what I try to convey with the slide. And we said what we will try and do is we will remind ourselves of the opposite first, before we work on the positive qualities that we need to develop. Because once we become aware of how bad the opposite quality is, it could be an incentive and a motivation not to be like that, to see it for what it is. When you bear grudges and you want to retaliate, these people are normally bitter people. Whether they're entitled to feel bitter or not, but it's associated with bitterness and wanting to seek revenge. and being resentful towards those who have harmed you. It's also a sign of unkindness and intolerance. And it's a reflection of the type of heart that one has if you are unforgiving. You are hard-hearted. Now, at the general level, it gives you a picture now. This is what you must not be. You should be the opposite of this. And the opposite of this is, I'm just quickly going to put all of it up. And you can, well, let me just quickly just read it out. You should be merciful and kind. You should pardon people. Pardon is associated with where punishment is due, but you withhold the punishment and you pardon, you forgive, you absolve people, and you are lenient and you have a big heart. Big enough, big-hearted, even though I'm not going to. That's the kind of heart that you want, which is described with all of these qualities. Now, the best example by far, I mean, if we've gone through the history of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, throughout his life, there are so many examples of how this quality of forgiveness and also tolerance was actually lived, practiced in a daily environment with all sorts of different circumstances. There are so many examples of this. And this is a standout quality of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's forgiving and tolerant attitude that he had, especially towards people who were opposed to him, who considered him as their enemy, and so on. Now, he lived this. He didn't only preach it, and he showed us through all the different things that he went through in his life. There are probably all the examples that we can extract from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's life of, in that instance, he behaved like this. But he did not only practice forgiveness and tolerance towards his followers and Muslims. There are several examples where he had displayed and practiced these qualities towards those people who were outside of the fold of Islam, who were in fact blatant enemies of Islam, to the point that they even conspired to kill him. I mean, think of this kind of situation where somebody regards you as an enemy to the point that they even want to kill you, and went to the extent to actually implement their plans to do this. And yet when the tables were turned and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in power, he never took revenge on those people. Not even the people who were his staunchest opponents during the early period of Islam. And subhanallah, the difficulties and the hardships that the early Muslims had to go through, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a shining example to them, and they could hold on to his example of how they had to react and respond as Muslims. Because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as a prophet, yes, Allah has given him certain qualities, but his followers were not prophets, but they followed his example to the point that one could say that that is a hallmark of the early period of Islam. It could have been marked by lots of chaos and fighting and killing and revenge and all of that, but that was not the case. Even to the point where they came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and asked for permission to migrate, first to Medina and then to Abyssinia and other places, instead of fighting and seeking revenge. And this is what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave to his followers. He said in this hadith, you do not do evil to those who do evil to you, but deal with them with forgiveness and kindness. Wow. If we were to respond in our current situation, and this was the kind of yardstick or the advice or the guidance that we give to the people around us when they have been harmed, severely harmed and injured and embarrassed, and you say, no, you must forgive and be kind to those people. It would be very, very difficult to implement in today's times. But in those times, it was so much worse, where people's not only were physically harmed, but their lives were at stake. Their possessions were at stake. Their families were at stake. But they were advised by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam not to retaliate with the same kind of evil behavior, but to actually respond with mercy and kindness and forgiveness. Now, we know in the Battle of Uhud, we know the story there, that yes, there was a period in the Battle of Uhud when the Muslims were definitely on the verge of victory. Then some of the followers did not stick to the instruction of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to remain at a certain point and to keep that area protected. When it looked to them as if the battle was won, they went down from their position, and that was the point when the whole battle turned around. And as a result of that, the Prophet was injured to the point that they even broke his jaw and damaged his face, and he was bleeding, and people were very concerned. But alhamdulillah, they didn't lose the battle. They didn't lose the battle completely. And when the Sahaba saw the state of the Prophet, they were so angry. And they said to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, call upon your Lord, call upon Allah to curse them and damn them. And picture the state that the Prophet was in, that he was bleeding, his face was damaged, and he said to his Sahaba, I was not sent to damn people, but sent as a mercy unto them. Subhanallah. The conditions and the circumstances there took a very special kind of human being to respond in this particular way. But then there was another example. All of you probably heard this, and I'm reiterating this example and just going over it again, just to remind all of us. We know about the story about whenever Rasulullah was on his way to the mosque, he walked past the house of this woman, old woman, who was a unbeliever, and she regarded Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as her enemy, and could not stand and tolerate the message that he brought. But not just the message, but the impact that it had on society at that time, that as a woman, she didn't physically fight him, but every time he came past there, she would throw all sorts of dirt and rubbish on him. Every day when he walked past the mosque. Subhanallah. Then one day, as he was walking his normal route, the woman was not there. And when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam inquired about her absence, one of the neighbors of this woman said, no, she's actually quite sick. She's in bed. Then what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did, he went to the house and asked for permission to enter, and he was given that. And when he entered the house, and this woman became aware that he was there now in the house, this old woman, she was so concerned and scared. She knew what she had done every single day that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam walked past her house, what she did. She was aware of what she was doing. And here she was in bed, sick, unable to defend herself. Now, if anything had to happen, she assumed that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to take revenge now, because she was in this position and could not defend herself. But he went to her and assured her, I'm not here to take revenge. I actually heard that you were sick, and I wanted to know how you are. And he inquired after her well-being and her state and so on, and didn't even mention or refer to her behavior when before she got sick. As I lifted my hands, I noticed my gloves, and you will forgive me. It's because it's so cold that I've put on these gloves, so you'll forgive me. And when he did that, she was shocked, because this was the opposite way of what she was expecting would happen. Now, this gives us an example. Here, clearly, if it was anyone else, they would have used that as an opportunity to retaliate and to seek revenge now, because the conditions were completely different now and allowed for that. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not do that. It shows you the kind of personality that we are dealing with, and how, if one has the courage and the ability, how we should actually behave towards those, even if we know that they want to harm us or slander us or embarrass us or do things that can put us in disrepute. in our lives. This incident illustrates that. Now, there are so many other examples of how we should actually, rather than, even though, remember the Quranic ayah we mentioned there, Allah says, it's okay. You are allowed to seek compensation or take revenge within the parameters prescribed. Don't overdo it. But if somebody harmed you, you're allowed to harm them to the same extent if they did it without any reason or whatever. But here Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has taken the other part of that Quranic ayah, which says it's better to be patient and merciful and forgiving and kind and tolerant to those who seek to harm us or insult us. Now, when we're going to come back to that part later on when we deal with the practical, how do we take the message of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Islam generally, the Quran and the Sunnah, how do we take that and apply it in our lives in such a way that it can turn us into better people? Yeah, the Prophet led by example, because he was not this person who came to tell people, this is the book, the final message. He took the essence and the content of the book, the Quran, and he lived it, and he showed people what the Quran says here. This is the way it should be implemented in practice. Subhanallah. We've got so much in the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that makes it easy for us to actually become better people. I think I've mentioned this, that forgiveness and tolerance should not just be exercised and practiced towards Muslims. It should be something that we apply to all of humanity. Forgive and be tolerant to everyone. It's not easy, but that is essentially, yes, we can take revenge if we want to, up to a point, but it's better to be forgiving and merciful. Now, one of the reasons why we must just go take one step back. Who created this world? Allah created this world. Who created the different nations? Who created the different ways that people react and respond? Do we think we can just react and respond determined on our own? Every possible action of a human being, under whatever circumstances, doesn't only happen at that moment. We are living through the various possibilities that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created. Allah created differences amongst people. Allah created people in order to do wrong and to do good, with choice in between. And with the choice, Allah has given you the Quran and Sunnah and says, I'm giving you choice, but I'm giving you guidance. But you are free to choose whether you want to do this or that. Now, not everyone is going to follow the Quran and the Sunnah. Not even all the Muslims. We should recognize the differences that exist in the world and see that the diversity, not only in the way people look and behave, but generally how they interact and respond that Allah created all of that. Don't see it as separate from Allah. Don't think that we can come up with new ways of doing things or not doing things that is not known to Allah. Because whatever we can do has already been created by Allah as possibilities. And Allah knows that, and Allah created it before we were even born. So the diversity is something that we should recognize as Allah's sign. But we have been placed on this dunya as Allah's Khalifas on earth. Now, all the differences that exist in the world, we, whether they are Muslim or not, we are supposed to be their overseers, the governors, the Khalifas of everyone, regardless of who they are. Like at the time, early period in Medina, when the Jews were there and the non-believers were there, Rasulullah was the governor of all of those people. We as Khalifas must understand that our role is to promote peace and harmony and coexistence. As Khalifas, we representing or ought to be representing what Allah expects from human beings. We must ensure that it is actually implemented. So behaving in the way that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has set the example for us is the way to actually achieve that. We must realize that forgiving is a very, very great virtue, because it's like writing off a debt. Somebody owes you a lot of money and you say, it's all right. You don't have to give it to me. You're entitled to claim, you're entitled for compensation, but you forego that. And you don't even, you don't just forego, you scratch it out as if it didn't happen. That's how you should behave. Don't say, okay, you don't owe me the money, but I won't forget. Forget also, if you can. And seek forgiveness, not only for yourself, but seek forgiveness for those that have harmed you. That's the hallmarks of a true Muslim. Because Allah repeats this and reminds us in this Quranic ayah, chapter 7, verse 199, open quote, show forgiveness, enjoin what is good, and turn away from the ignorant. The first part you understand, turn away from the ignorant, the people who are dead set on, no, you harmed me, I'm entitled to claim from you, and I'm going to want this, that to be done, or you must give me this in return. An eye for an eye. Now, when it happens like that, then you are not following what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our owner, the one who knows what is best for us, the one who created us, and all the conditions we find ourselves in. Allah says, turn away from the ignorant. In other words, don't do what they do. Don't follow them. Show forgiveness. Now, we've got a long, long way to go. In fact, alhamdulillah, it's not as bad as it was maybe a generation or two ago, but I can tell you there was a period in the history of the Western Cape where there were ugly differences between the Muslims and the non-Muslims. Of course, there was a period where we coexisted, and it stands out as one of the good aspects of our past year. But there was also a period when I was growing up when we had this anti-Muslim sentiment. But at the same time, we also had an anti-Christian. Anything that was associated with that, we steered clear from, and we were opposed to it. But we're supposed to be promoting tolerance towards people, regardless of all the criteria that we've been using there. And we were so intolerant. Subhanallah, may Allah be patient with us and forgive us for how we've behaved, especially not only to the Christian community, but towards the African community. As Muslims, we set a horrible example. We actually treated, and still do. May Allah forgive us and open our eyes and our hearts. We treat people who have curly hair and who are dark of complexion and described as Africans. I don't even want to use the other word that people use. Is this what we are supposed to be doing as Muslims? We meet those people when we're on Hajj, and it's like they are other people. The same person, if you meet them here, this very same person you will treat in a disdainful way. We are supposed to be Allah's Khalifas on earth. We must constantly remind ourselves that we have a responsibility to promote peaceful coexistence and tolerance, even towards those people who hold completely different beliefs to us, even if they're antagonistic to us. We should set the example of not being antagonistic towards them. There Allah speaks to us again in this chapter 29, verse 46, and argue not with the people of the scripture, unless it be in a way that is better, except with such of them as do wrong. There's a few points covered in this particular verse. The first thing is, don't engage in debates with people about why Christianity is wrong. Don't do that. Why do we want to do that? Allah says, don't do it. Argue not with the people of the scripture. People of the scripture could refer to both the Jews and the Christians, unless it be in a way that is better, where it's a constructive debate and people want to know more about the Deen, and you can engage in a way that is productive and not controversial. But you can argue with them if they promote Islam, for example, as a deen of terrorists and whatever, and they slander us and so on. Then we can engage with them if they are trying to prevent us, for example, from practicing our deen and doing the things that we need to do and commanded to do, and they want to stop us, then we can engage them. But also as Muslims, there's a protocol, there's an etiquette of how one should actually do these things. Now, forgiveness and mercy is very closely associated, because a merciful person will be forgiving, and a forgiving person will be merciful. That's why I use this hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he says, "He who does not show mercy to others will not be shown mercy." Ya Allah. How many of us have closed Allah's mercy towards us by our behavior in the past? We insisted on, I want to get my pound of flesh. You owe me this. You've harmed me. You owe me. You harmed me. I can harm you back. I am not interested. You want to not be merciful now. You're actually closing the door in the akhirah. And do you know what? As a reminder to all of us, no one will go to Jannah. No one. Unless it is with the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When this question was raised with Rasulullah, and he was asked that question, does this even apply to you? He said, yes. We all go to Jannah purely based on the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not because of our deeds. Now, how do you qualify for the mercy of Allah? So whatever you do, Allah will, it depends on Allah's mercy. To get that mercy, you must be merciful. Make that connection. Make that connection. Seek every opportunity to be merciful. Not only to people, to dogs and cats and your environment. Act in a merciful manner. Because you want to open that door of Allah's mercy when we're all going to need it. Ya Allah, be merciful to us. Then the Quran says again, chapter 24, verse 22, let them forgive and overlook. Do you not wish that Allah should forgive you? For Allah is oft forgiving and all merciful. It reinforces the hadith of what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said above. And as we said, we should be seen as compassionate people, caring people, forgiving people, merciful people, people that try to build bridges, to sort out the problems, not just amongst Muslims, but within the community. Say you live in a particular area, and there is a community meeting where people from all backgrounds and races and beliefs come together. We should set the tone and the example of what kind of things we do as a community. Things that will encourage togetherness and coexistence, and not harshness and fighting and aggravation and all the negative stuff. Allah was referring to the people, the category of people that we ought to be, those who restrain anger and pardon men. Then the sentence goes on, Allah loves those who do good. It's one sentence with this semicolon. Who restrain anger and pardon men. Allah loves those who do good. That is regarded as good. Restrain your anger, it's good. And pardoning people is regarded as good. Now, if we tolerant, just to mention the question of tolerance, tolerance is almost where you put a brake on what you would normally react to in a certain way. You put a brake on it and you overlook and you tolerate that. Now, not everything can be tolerated, of course. We agree to that. But generally speaking, if you overlook the faults and the harm and the injury and the mischief of other people, then it's a it's a form of ibadah. It's a form of ibadah. It's a hallmark of those who are regarded as salih. A salih person, if you see, if there's somebody and you're not sure, is this a salih person or not? Not that's for you to judge. That's for Allah to judge. But we all fall in this category. You look at this person and say, oh, that's a very good person. The way you perceive the person to be. If the person is not tolerant, then that person has got work to do. That person doesn't fully qualify yet as a pious, salih person. Because a pious person must be described with certain qualities. One of it is tolerance. And tolerance is, as I said, it's a form of ibadah. You don't have to do anything special. You just tolerate, not just at home, but especially to those that you don't know and those who have harmed you, and you're tolerant towards them. You overlook. Then you've performed a great ibadah. I can't say greater than what. Allah knows. Allah's the one who determines who gets what. It might be under a particular condition and circumstances where you practice that quality, that it could be weighed as heavy as some of the, I was almost going to say as heavy as the Hajj, but that's not for me to say, depending on the special conditions and circumstances. But it's a form of ibadah, remember that. It's not just a nice to have. Now, these people are included, the tolerant people, what Allah refers to there as those who do good. They restrain their anger is tolerance. And then when you've done that and you do good, when you do good, Allah is pleased with you. So if you're tolerant, then you fall in the category of those people that Allah loves. Let me just see how many slides I still have to do. Just quickly. No, I'm not going to be able to get this done. I just want to take a pause here. And here, if there's any comment or question on what we've said. Now, these things are not difficult to understand. It's easy to understand, but it will test our iman to the limit at times. And it starts right at home first. Then it spirals out. And I just want to hear whether there are any questions or comments that anyone would like to make at this stage. I'm opening the floor now for comments or questions if there are any.
Salie, just
Yes.
on that point, Salie mentioned not engaging in arguments with people on a religious basis. And one of the things that I found myself once I was in a debate or discussion with someone who was victimizing people in the queue because they were a person of a certain religious persuasion, and they were using this as a platform to preach to people, and they're targeting the Muslim people. But at some point, I realized that my defense was more in a way for my own ego than it was for the purpose of defending the people of the queue and defending Islam. So I think sometimes also keeping quiet and restraining oneself saves a person from from harming the other person that you, by insulting them in any way, and also it prevents us from losing the thawab of that moment, because the intention to want to do something brings the reward, but when one engages and your ego takes over because you want to prove something now, because you feel you've been insulted or hurt, it actually kind of sometimes makes things worse.
Shukran, shukran. It took a bit of courage to acknowledge your fault there publicly. But alhamdulillah, it demonstrates a very good point. The point that I think is important to latch on to. You might be doing something, but doing it in the wrong way makes the good thing the wrong thing to do. If you can understand what I'm saying.
Yes,
And
that's
maybe,
the profound thing. And Shaitan will actually encourage you on that aspect, knowing that you're going to do something against what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with.
yeah, in fact, let me tell you something about Shaitan. You think Shaitan is stupid. Shaitan is one of the most intelligent creations that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created. He will adjust, Shaitan will adjust his strategy to suit the individual that he's dealing with. And what Shaitan does, one of his tricks is he will use a good thing, but change it in such a way to achieve his objective of taking you away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He will say, of course you're right. How can they insult Muslims? He will use that as his argument. And you will, in your own mind, respond by saying, yeah, of course. Yeah. And then next thing you know, he's got you in his grip and you're doing exactly the opposite. Instead of defending Islam, you're putting Islam in a bad light because the way you may be engaging with the other party, and it's now a worse situation than if you had just been quiet and tolerant. Not that we must always be tolerant when people attack us. Remember, there are times when we must stand up for what is right, but we must do it in a fair and just way, and it mustn't worsen the situation. Is there anyone else? Muhammad Farid, are you still with us?
Assalamu alaikum. Yes, Brother Salim, I'm still here.
What are your views on what we've said so far, Muhammad Farid?
Like Brother Salim has just mentioned, it is something that it's very easy to understand, very easy to read, but extremely, extremely heavily to practice. And it's the most difficult part to practice. And this is what gets me, where this knowledge is so light on the tongue, so easy to read, but yet it is so difficult to practice no matter who you are. And this is seen on the person's character. And this is really, it's really very tough. And like Muhammad Fasih has said, I've also been put in those situations many times before. And if you cannot respond in a way that is a calm way, in a just way, in a fair way, in a beautiful way, then you rather keep quiet. And inshallah, it will manifest himself at a later stage. But that is a very difficult. I mean, it can be in a massive gathering where you know it's what is being said is incorrect, and just keeping quiet is very difficult. But at the moment, if you know how to respond, then you respond. So yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
shukran for those comments. Any other comment? Because I'm going to continue with this topic where we will deal with some of the practical suggestions of how we can develop this in practice in our daily lives. So I am going to not continue with more slides now. That's why I'm opening the floor, and I would like to get some more comments, even if it's from people who did speak already. But let's hear if there's anyone else who would like to add.
Mr. Salie,
Yes,
um,
Sister Warda.
I just wanted to swing it around a bit and ask, can we sometimes, due to cowardice and not having the courage to stand up when something is wrong and then put a label on, oh, I'm being humble here, I'll forgive them. So, as you have mentioned, Shaitan is very shrewd. So, we have to examine ourselves in a sincere way to identify what it is that causes us to react in a particular way.
Yeah,
Shukran.
it's a very subtle but extremely important point, because often we find ourselves, in fact, life is made up of all the situations, all those who have spoken, is made up of all of these little things and presents itself in a slightly different way, but it's covered with all the pros and cons around us. And one of it would be to consider what our sister Warda has said here, and that is, at the end of the day, Allah knows your capability. Allah knows whether you have been given the ability to respond to that in an appropriate manner or not. Allah knows your reasons for either doing or not doing. Now, part of, let's play this out in this way, for example. So now, the day of judgment, remember, every minute, every second of our lives, we're going to have to account to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So we must all account to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for every second. Now this situation is played out where you could have done something, but you didn't. Allah knows whether you were able to do and what you were able to do. Do you think you can lie to Allah by saying, no, I actually thought that if I speak out, it's going to make things worse? Maybe you were just scared, or you didn't have the courage to do it. But Allah knows whether you had the ability to do it or not. But maybe you were concerned, what are they going to think of you or whatever? But you certainly may have had the ability, because you're generally a good speaker and can defend yourself and your deen under normal circumstances. But maybe there was somebody there that influenced why you didn't want to intervene or whatever. It becomes so complicated. At the end of the day, this is a deeply personal thing between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just remember, what are we talking about? We're talking about purifying the heart. These qualities, tolerance and forgiveness, is a door that we've identified, that if you go through this door, a section of your heart you can purify. And if the heart is purified, you can get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can't come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with a heart that you claim to be this and think that Allah doesn't know. Allah knows what's in your heart, and Allah knows what qualities Allah gave you. Allah can say, with those qualities that I gave you, so and so, you were easily able to respond and react. Then the truth will come to light. So let us not fool ourselves about, doing the right things at the right time. But one of the key things, it must be a balanced approach. We don't say we must, forgiveness and tolerance does not mean weakness. It doesn't mean that Muslims must be trampled upon. This thing about Christians, some Christians, not all, some Christians saying, if somebody smacks you, you turn the other cheek. Is that always true? Let me put that question to you. Is that right? If somebody comes to you, we're saying we must be tolerant, we must be forgiving. If somebody comes to you and they smack you, is it right or wrong to retaliate? I put the question up to you, all of you.
I think Brother Salie actually mentioned that earlier on where at the end of the day, at the point of Sharia, one has the right to respond and to give like for like, as the Sharia indicates. But I also think that when it comes to, it seems almost like in Islam, when it comes to other people's rights, we stand up and we defend and we are there for justice. But when it comes to ourselves, of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us lives and honor to protect and all of these things. But at the same time, I think we have to judge when we are encouraging bad behavior or when we're giving people a chance to better themselves. I think, like for instance, people who speak rudely to us and we just ignore those things, we ignore the way that they engage with us on the basis of the fact that we're giving them a chance, versus someone who starts punching us or violently attacking us. And then we have the right to defend ourselves because they're going to cause destruction. So I guess it's a difficult line to draw in this conversation, but I
Yes.
think it merits the situation itself, and we judge it on what the situation is.
Alhamdulillah. I think that's I can't give you a implicit answer on whether it's right to turn the other cheek or not, because we have to use an actual practical example, because it could be that you have a supervisor. Every time you do something wrong, he smacks you. And is it right that you should just turn the other cheek and let him smack you again? He can become so abusive that he takes it as a right, and he starts judging you by your response from yesterday. That every time you, in another case, there's a group of people here on the one side and a group on the other, and you are the person engaging with the leader of the people on the other side, and that person gets so frustrated that he smacks you or hits you. In a case like that, I'm using two extreme examples now. In a case like that, of course you've got the right. You've got the people behind you. They're ready to support you. Whatever happens now, he's thrown the first punch. Now, you must be cautious. Now comes the need for a cool head and to reflect on what will the consequences be if you return the punch. You're going to have the two groups in a war. And who knows where that might end up. So even if you feel he's hurt you and unfairly so, and he smacked you or kicked you or whatever, and you know you're stronger than him, and you can return it, and you've got more people behind you, but where it will lead to, it's better for you to stand back in a case like that. So it's not always right to turn the other cheek. There are times when before you even hits the first cheek, you must block it. That's enough now. You've done enough. I'm not going to allow you to punch me like you punched me yesterday. Stop it now. You might be the manager or whatever, but I'm not going to allow you to abuse me like that. Then you can react and respond. But in other cases, you just back off. You just back off because the consequences might be a lot worse. Now, we don't know all the answers to these things, right? How do you know whether it's right or wrong all the time? You don't. But if you purify your heart, then the heart is able to judge beyond just the mind and your emotions. Then the heart comes in. Remember, the body is controlled. Either you allow it just to be controlled by the mind and what comes into your mind, or it could be that, no, the mind is also controlled by the heart. And then you will behave in a different way. So the way to try and develop these things is to follow the guidelines of the Quran and Sunnah so that your heart can be purified. And if the heart is purified, then it will be able to guide you as a person on what are the things that's pleasing to Allah. But if the heart is filthy and under the control of shaitan, the nafs and the dunya, then anything goes. That heart is filled with all the wrong things. You will be the first one to throw the punch, never mind return the punch. You see how complicated these things become? So one of the things, if things happen, don't judge people, leave judgment to Allah, and reflect, and always stand back first. Stand back and forgive. Only react and respond when there's no other way. That's a better way. Even if you are entitled to return like for like, as our brother Muhammad Fasih said. I want to leave it on that note, and thank you all for participating tonight. It would be good if all of you can be here when we deal with the practical things, so that we can now see whether is this workable or not, is not something that can be improved on or whatever, because I'm going to come up with suggestions, practical suggestions of what we should do and what we should start implementing in our lives to achieve the benefit of forgiveness and tolerance as a means of putting our hearts in better shape. So shukran.
Brother Salie,
Yes, Warda.
just before you end up, I just wanted to say that yes, it's the state of the heart that will determine what the right response would be. But how do we know the state of our heart? Is always watch out for ego and nafs, because that is how shaitan will so subtly creep in, and we may want to interpret it as the Salie way out. But check that ego, see where you think your heart is and what ego could be doing in order to disguise himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, inshallah.
Yeah. No. Thank you for that, Warda, Sister Warda. I think it's something that we need to just add to what was said up to now. And that is, if you want to react and respond, then just stand back, just pause for a moment and ask yourself, where is this coming from? Test your heart. If it is in line generally with what would be pleasing to Allah, then you know it's coming from the pure part of your heart. You will recognize shaitan, all of you, if you just reflect and pause, because there are certain things that they use as tools, and one of it would be anger and revenge. We describe unforgiving, intolerant. Look for those qualities. If you see those qualities present, you know this is not from a pure heart. This is coming from the other guys. It's just a means, a way of checking. But it's not easy. I mean, what I'm just using whatever I can to assist to make this more easier to implement. But I don't know. I don't know all the answers. I hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us, lift the veil so that we can say and do the right things. But we must understand and know that some things we will never know. It will always just remain with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But I'm going to end off on that note. And thank you for having participated. And I hope you will join us next week, inshallah. I'm going to ask Muhammad Farid to make dua for us. Closing dua, inshallah.
الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولا عصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلى الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. وذلك سورة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين آمين يا رب العالمين. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. جزاك الله خير وتسليمان. السلام عليكم everybody.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Shukran jazilan once again to all of you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep you, your family, and everyone else safe. Remove all your difficulties and especially look after our youth. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide and protect our youth. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.